Hello and welcome to another budget deck tech here on CheapAssMTG. This week we're back with a budget standard deck costing around 40 tickets on Magic Online around the time of recording. So let's dive straight in. The deck we've chosen for our budget deck tech this time is Zombies. Zombies is a powerful synergy driven deck that builds on the zombies that have come out of Amonkhet along with zombies out of Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon, alongside one or two other additions that are still floating around in Standard. We'll start with 4 copies of Crypt Breaker. Crypt Breaker is obviously a great card that can both produce zombies and let you draw cards. It gives the deck quite a bit of reach, as the deck is fundamentally an aggressive deck, but the ability to draw cards heading into the late game gives it a little bit of maneuverability. We also play 4 copies of Diagraph Colossus. Diagraph Colossus is quite a payout for being in zombies. It either enters the battlefield as a big zombie itself, it's one of the last zombies you play, or if you play it quite early on, you get a host of 2/2 black zombie tokens, which really enable you to go wide. We play an honorary zombie with 4 copies of Metallic Mimic. I feel this card is just going to fit into any tribal deck in Standard while it's around. It's a 2-drop that makes all your other zombies better, so I think it's a really nice addition. And also, we're playing 4 copies of Wayward Servant. This is mostly the reason the deck is black-white and not mono-black. Wayward Servant is a bear that allows you to drain. I think having played against this deck, I find the drain effect to be very useful. It allows you to get in for extra damage here and there that you don't have to do with attacking. It means you can finish your opponent off with 1 or 2 less attacks most of the time. For the rest of the creatures, we'll start with 4 copies of Binding Mummy. Binding Mummy is a very good budget alternative, though I will say it gets very quickly outclassed by the other 2-drops you could play. But as this is a budget deck, I think it's a great substitute. It allows you to keep getting for damage, tapping your opponent's creatures down. I think it's very much at home in an aggro deck, which is what this is. We also play 4 copies of Lord of the Accursed. No surprise here, we're playing 4 copies of our Zombie Lord. You can also give all our zombies Menace, which means if we amass any sort of board, it would become very difficult to block. We also play 4 copies of Plague Belcher as a big, aggressive creature that allows us to get in for extra damage when our zombies die, has Menace itself, so it's difficult to block, and if you're lucky, you can put the counter somewhere else, and on turn 3, you just have a 5/4, which is a very nice, aggressive start. Being in black, we have access to some very good removal. We'll start with 4 copies of Grasp of Darkness. Being a predominantly black deck, we're very happy to play Grasp. -4/-4 for 2 mana is great. It deals with threats in the metagame like Heart of Kiran and Archangel Avacyn. Very useful. We also play 4 copies of Dark Salvation. This is another one of those cards that is a real payoff for playing zombies. Dark Salvation is a really strong card. It swings games completely. It kills one of your opponent's creatures and gives you zombie tokens. It gets powered up by each zombie you have on the board. It's a great card. We're very happy to play 4 copies of it, even though it is quite an expensive spell. We also play 2 copies of Never to Return. Nice flexible removal spell here that can also hit Planeswalkers. And Return is not useless in this deck. Exiling target card from a graveyard can be useful. There are decks utilising their graveyard in Standard, so being able to exile card will have its applications. But also it gets us another 2/2 zombie, which this deck is obviously quite fond of. On to the Manabase. Again, as this is a budget deck, we avoid the expensive options. So we're playing 8 Swamps, 6 Plains, 4 Forsaken Sanctuary, and 4 Cradle of the Accursed. The Manabase could definitely be improved with the introduction of more dual lands. But I do like the inclusion of Cradle of the Accursed. It's a man land in effect, so you sacrifice it to get another zombie. It triggers your Wayward Servants, your Binding Mummies, etc. I think it's a pretty good card in this deck, and certainly one that shouldn't be overlooked. And finally, onto some more non-budget upgrades. If you've got some, you may have some of these lying about in your binders. You may be able to trade for some of these at small cost, or you may just have a bigger budget and wish to improve the deck. So we'll start with improving the mana base. Concealed Courtyard is obviously a very good card. We're an aggressive deck with lots of black mana requirements, but we do want our white mana quite early, so Concealed Courtyard is a big improvement to the mana base. Similarly, Shambling Vent is just strictly better than Forsaken Sanctuary. I think you want to be careful not to include too many tap lands, because you want to play your 1-drops into your 2-drops. but you could definitely include a couple of Shambling Vents. The removal suite could be improved with the inclusion of Fatal Push. We don't have too many ways to trigger Revolt in this deck, but Fatal Push to kill Heart of Kiran and other troubling 2-drops is very efficient. On the creature front, Dread Wanderer was a new card that came out of Amonkhet that would be very much at home in this deck. It's an aggressive 1-drop that you can keep returning from your graveyard to the battlefield without any cost of resources other than mana. Very big, it's not like Scrap Heap Scrounger that has to eat something. This is another way the deck has a bit of reach. It can keep bringing its creatures back. I definitely think if you are looking to make this deck more competitive, it is a very good inclusion. Also, going back to Shadows over Innistrad, Relentless Dead is a great zombie. At 2 black, it can be difficult to bring out on turn 2 in a black-white deck, but I think this is definitely better than Binding Mummy. And if you have the budget, definitely worth the investment for the deck. And finally, other inclusions, 2 of the Lilianas currently in Standard, those being Liliana the Last Hope and Liliana Death's Majesty, would be great inclusions in this deck. Liliana the Last Hope, you're kind of playing her to get her up to her ultimate, but she can pick off small creatures, get creatures back from your graveyard, so she can be useful. Whereas Liliana's Death Majesty, she's a bit more expensive, probably better as a sideboard option, but she creates black zombie tokens and can get creatures back from your graveyard. And again, her ultimate is very powerful in a deck where all your creatures are zombies. So that's the deck tech. Tell us what you think in the comments below. If you do like it, please give us a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot. There is a list linked in the description that you will be able to go and click on and see a written list, the more recent prices for the cards. It's worth noting the price of these cards have been increasing. Zombies decks are getting a little bit more popular in Standard. So if you are looking to get this deck, you may want to think about the timings of when to buy the cards. And finally, remember to subscribe to the channel for more Standard deck techs, limited videos, the occasional modern deck tech. And also remember to like, subscribe and follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. They are all at CheapAssMTG. And I hope you'll join us for future videos.